It's the top trending story across the country. Firefighters are battling several deadly wind-whipped wildfires across Southern California. This morning, you're looking at a live picture right now from KABC down in Los Angeles. Take a look at that camera. Just zooms in closer to that mountain range there in Los Angeles County. You can just see some of that devastation, and oh, I can imagine the smell of the smoke in the air right now, and in the sight of it as well. Now, this wildfire, the wildfires, plural, I should say, because there are multiple. They've destroyed homes and forced tens of thousands to evacuate.
It's just incredible to see all that smoke just rising into the sky, isn't it? Yes. A news conference just wrapped up within the last 30 minutes where we learned more than 5,000 acres have now burned because of those fires, and at least 2 people have now died. There's also a large number of significant injuries, but officials have not said exactly how many people have been hurt in these fires. Officials have also said more than 1,000 structures have been destroyed, including homes and businesses. Officials are also requesting resources from out of the state and Northern California, as well, as wildfires are pushing first responders to their maximum limits after working overnight and putting so many hours to try to get those fires under control. In some areas of Southern California, the traffic has been so bad from evacuations that people actually abandoned their vehicles. That traffic jam prevented emergency vehicles from getting through, and a bulldozer, as you see right there, was used to push those abandoned cars out of the way so that first responders can get through and get to the fire lines.
Resources are strained in California as firefighters work day and night to contain the flames.
And conditions in California are only expected to worsen this morning. Let's bring in meteorologist George Waldenberger, tracking this very closely this morning. George, we have to talk about those Santa Ana winds, and they're sweeping across Southern California, triggering red flag warnings for Los Angeles County, other areas too. Walk us through what a Santa Ana wind event is and how this weather event will impact conditions in California today and throughout the rest of the week.
Well, primarily it'll generate winds that will fan the flames, but you know how we talk about our Cascadia winds here in western Washington when a big storm develops and that brings the winds in down through the mountain passes and then down through the Cascade foothills, kind of like what happened with the bomb cyclone in November. They're not unlike. So Santa Ana winds are not unlike our Cascadia winds, but the setup is a little different in this scenario. So the high pressure, that's a ridge, and it's actually a strong high pressure, and it's what's keeping our weather in western Washington so quiet. Now, pressure drop or pressure gradient from high to low, so when you add a little storm there like that one over northwest Mexico, that enhances the pressure drop as you move south of that high pressure. So that pressure gradient drives a wind. Now, because the earth is spinning, we have the Coriolis force. And so when you have large scale and long lasting wind events like what has generated here, they have a tendency to go to their right side, or they'll have turn to their right relative to the earth. We call that the Coriolis force, and that's what's pushing the winds down slope right over Southern California. And you can see that with the satellite imagery following the wind patterns, at least at low levels. Now, this is so intense, it's a low-level jet, like a jet stream at low levels. Now, further adding to the flames here, so to speak, is that the winds that are coming off of Nevada are coming off of a high elevation. So as they go to lower and lower elevations, they meet higher and higher pressures, they compress and they heat up. You don't add any moisture to the air, so that dries the air as well. So the air not only windy, but it becomes warmer and drier as it moves over Southern California. Add to that the fact that we haven't had any rain in that area recently, and you have the stage for wildfires. Now, this setup actually generated 100-mile-per-hour winds at Mount Lukens. That's in Southern California, and near 100-mile-per-hour winds in Saddle Peak. That's to the southwest of Woodland Hills, I believe around 7 or 8 miles. Magic Mountain, 90-mile-per-hour winds with this setup. Now, yesterday, looking at the satellite, you could see the smoke there in the wind drifting offshore from Pacific Palisades. That's the source of that smoke. And then off to the east, you can see the locations of LA, Pasadena. Now, in red, this is our red flag warning. It's in effect through tomorrow, indicating that ongoing fire risk. Today, though, our high wind warning will expire, at least at the end of the day. So that means the winds are expected to weaken somewhat, and that's because that low pressure area that I pointed out earlier will drift to the south. But we still have a lot of wind alerts. They go into Arizona, and they're in effect for the time being. So today we have the most critical fire risk, and then it diminishes somewhat, but notice it's still elevated by the weekend. So again, in addition to these winds, which are forecast to come down gradually day by day, this is also also been denoted a particularly dangerous situation. And you may be saying, of course it is. But this is a term that we use in meteorology, often with significant tornado events. And now this has been applied to this fire event. And this is actually the third fire event this season in the area using that designation, a particularly dangerous situation. So, yeah, it just goes to show that's how bad the situation is, I guess.
The area certainly needs some rain, George. So we see wildfires here at home in Washington state as well, but California often sees intense, destructive wildfires. What makes the state so prone to wildfires in comparison to here?
Okay, so they don't get nearly the amount of rainfall that we get, okay? They also have wind patterns that really set up in the fall time that can fan the flames, the Santa Ana winds that we talked about. Also, looking at well, that was the wrong graphic, but one of the other reasons why Southern California is so prone to wildfires is that after you go through such a warm, dry summer, and then you make it into fall once you start seeing the Santa Ana winds, you have all the dead vegetation, the winds funnel right through the canyons, and once you have a spark, once you have a flame, that wind just fans the flame right up and down the mountains through the valleys, and the winds can make it very difficult to fight those fires. And what is interesting in this case, though, is that you tend to peak the wildfire season in fall, and then the winter you start to see rain, but they just haven't had a lot of rain yet this winter.
And obviously, George, those dry conditions are a big factor in what we're seeing with some of that video that we're showing as you talk there. How much rain has the Los Angeles area seen recently, and is that below average from what they usually get?
Yeah, much below average. Okay. So going back to June, they've had less than 1/4 of an inch in Los Angeles, downtown, really near USC. Okay, 0.16 inches of rain. Normally you'd see more than 4 inches in that time frame. Most of that would have been in November, December, and early January. But it just hasn't been raining there. So it's abnormally dry, it's very windy, and the winds are funneling through the valleys. Add to that, we have a drought developing, not just for Southern California, but across many parts of the West. So you have those abnormally dry conditions. Now, we've talked about La Nina. La Nina, for us in Washington, usually means more mountain snow and colder weather. But for Southern California, that means drier conditions, and they are seeing that. I was looking ahead, guys, in the forecast. I don't see a lot of rain for Southern California, at least hopefully until the end of month, and hopefully at the end of January we get some rain down there.
Wow.
All right, George, thank you so much for that breakdown. We certainly do need the rain. The fact that it's been an abnormally dry winter is concerning, and the reason for this devastation.
Yeah, it's tough to see. Obviously, we're a number of miles away, but there's so many people like yourself, Tyra, who have family members or friends or just people that you know that are living in these areas that are seeing so much destruction this morning, with homes and businesses being destroyed, livelihoods, all those firefighters that are putting in such long hours just trying to get those fires under control, and all the people trying to evacuate, and they're being stuck in some of those traffic jams and are making that difficult decision to say, hey, maybe I need to abandon my vehicle and just bolt off on foot to try to get to safety. It's heartbreaking to see that.
And as the sun keeps on coming up, we're starting to get more clear images of the devastation down in Southern California, and you can really just see how bad the aftermath is. And these fire crews just working overtime. We know the White House has now stepped in, and they're going to be providing some aid. Here's another live picture here out of Los Angeles from KABC. Looks like it's just focused there on that mountain range with the fire on top, producing all that gray smoke just billowing in the air. The city really covered in smoke.
The devastation is just heartbreaking. Part of California, Southern California, is under a state of emergency because of several fast-moving wildfires.
It's the top trending story online right now. Many people taking to social media showing flames ripping through Southern California. They're posting video and pictures from the fires all in and around Los Angeles. Here's some of the newest video from overnight. Governor Gavin Newsom made the declaration after the fire started in Los Angeles County yesterday. According to CAL FIRE, the fires cover more than 5,700 acres and is 0% contained. The Los Angeles Fire Department put out a plea for off-duty firefighters to help fight the flames that were being pushed by winds with gusts up to 99 miles an hour. It created chaotic scenes as residents fled. Roads have been congested, with some people leaving their cars and escaping the fire on their feet. One evacuee says he and his wife tried to leave before the mandatory evacuation but had to stay put for a while because there was too much traffic.
And once we got through Sunset Boulevard, it was just mayhem. There were cars exploding. There were just everything was on fire. Like I've seen fires up in the Highlands before, but nothing like this where it was just uncontrolled.
As of last night, officials say about 30,000 people are under evacuation orders and more than 13,000 structures are under threat.
Here are just a few of the posts that we've seen in reaction to these fast-growing fires. Dave posting this saying, "Not good. Those Santa Ana winds are just brutal." Elle with this first-hand account saying, "I was in Hollywood today and there was a lot of crazy wind that blew debris and trash all over the freeway. It was just wild. Recent dry winds, including the notorious Santa Anas, have contributed to warmer than average temperatures in Southern California. That's where there's been very little rain so far this season, which is certainly fueling those fires this morning." The one thing that I can't stop thinking about this morning, Tyra, is we are just in the first couple days of January. And normally these scenes that we're seeing out of Southern California are something that you would see in months like June and July and August. But I remember back to that wildfire that burned around Pepperdine University just a number of weeks ago. So it really tells the story of this is a year-round wildfire season, and we're seeing the results of that today.
It's just so dry there.
Yeah.
And you know, people who live in Southern California, they welcome the year-round sunshine. But this just goes to show they really need some rain, and it's been months since they've had rain.
Yeah, thinking about all those people that have to evacuate their homes there.